So how do you tell the difference between maybe a fear of change or fear of new things and your gut telling you this is a bad idea?
That's a really provocative question. And when you put that out to me before we were having this conversation, at first I interpreted it a couple of different ways, and then I really had to think about, what is that difference? What is the difference between fear of change and my gut? And I think, for me, the way it works is that fear of change or fear of new things, let's say, is a space where my head is telling me all the reasons why I don't want to do something or take a step forward with, or why it won't work, or how bad things will be if I do it, or, there's usually no basis in reality. It's my head telling me all these things without having any, knowledge, let's say, of what the possibilities could be. And to me, it's a negative. It's the fear of change is kind of a negative, has negative connotations, and it's like looking at I'm comfortable now, so why should I do it differently? Sort of clinging to that comfort zone because I can't predict what's going to happen. And I think that it can be a big block for a lot of people, but I found that when I step out, say, okay, this is just fear of change, and change is good, change is inevitable, when I can step out of that comfort zone and look at the situation with clarity and, access other parts of my head, run it by trusted advisors, something like that, then it becomes possible to move forward. And so for me, I think fear of change is mostly not knowing what to do and not knowing what the outcome could be, fearing what the outcome could be.
Right.
But the gut, that is much more visceral. It's deep feeling versus my intellect. And for me, this usually manifests around projects or conversations with prospects and show up in the way that the conversations evolve around these things. And I find that if I'm feeling physically negative, I don't know how to explain that. It's just something in my body or my stomach, my gut, so to speak, that makes me uncomfortable, or I feel unhappy, or I'm having negative thoughts about the way things are being discussed or evolving. If the interaction is difficult, if a lot of red flags are coming up in terms of how I'm feeling about the interaction, I've found that when I ignore those things, I always regret it.
So it's just something about it feels off.
It just feels off. And I think that's really, the definition there, of feeling it in your gut, what's your gut telling you? And when you don't listen to that, when I don't listen to that, I usually regret it.
So have you gotten better at listening to that over the years than you did when you were 20? Or?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I still make some bad decisions, decisions I wish I hadn't made. No decision. Every bad decision for me is like more of a learning experience. Okay, won't do that again.
Yeah. I don't think anything's a waste as long as you can learn from it. And,
exactly.
Pull something out of it.
And I find that it comes up most of the time. It's not necessarily with stuff that I'm generating, but with what other people are presenting to me.
Oh, and want you to be involved in or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that part of it is that, I want to please, I want to be liked, I don't want to say no, typical things that many women, I think experience. Not feeling confident around a boundary, around something, and knowing that it's not the right thing for me, knowing that it's not necessarily a fear of the unknown, but it's just not right, but staying okay anyway.
Yeah, I've done that. I know where you're coming from.
And it's usually external things that have been, presented to me versus me saying, oh, I want to do this. Oh, no, that doesn't feel right. No, that's usually more, okay, how can I figure out how to do it?
Yeah, that's a good distinction. I think that's a really good distinction that I haven't heard anybody else bring up. And
it just occurred to me while I was talking it out that, that's where it's usually coming from.
Yeah, I think mine usually comes from that too. Somebody else suggesting I do something, and it's like, yeah, this isn't
right.
It's like eating Brussels sprouts or something.
They're really good for you, really, really. You should really eat those. Yeah, and I think a lot of it is that, there's from an external perspective, it's flattering to be invited or asked to contribute or participate or do whatever it is, be hired by a person or something. And, the most recent example I had was that I took on a client that I knew was going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And in the end, it was a nightmare. And I ended up saying, you know what, this isn't working. And I knew it wouldn't work from the outset.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't want to hurt her feelings. And in the end, I said, you know what, I think you need to find someone who communicates. I'm not communicating with you well enough. I can't. I put it all on me.
Yeah. Right.
And I think there's somebody better out there for you.
Yeah.
But I knew it, and it cost me time and money.
Yeah. That's probably the first lesson I learned in business, is to listen to that feeling that this client is not a good match. So, because you waste a lot of energy, a lot of your energy and time.
Exactly. And so,
but sometimes, you're not at that point, and I'm not now either, but I was in the beginning where you needed the money,
right.
And your gut is telling you, don't work with this person, but you need the money, and it's tough to listen to your
gut. Bank account is saying, just do it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right, and
you'll regret it.
Exactly. In the long run, I think it costs you more.
It does.
It really does, and it can cost you financially and emotionally and mentally and all the other things. And it could cost you your reputation, too. Mm-hmm. And, and that's, I think, an important piece that we often don't look at. I'm sensing that this isn't a good thing. It's making me very uncomfortable. I'm going to ignore that and do it anyway. But, if you need to back out or you need to make a change, that can create a ripple effect that you may not have expected.